Cosmic here. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about some big changes coming to the English version of Union Arena. Now, before I get into the product changes, potential bans, or other changes that we're going to see in each individual set, I want to at least give a quick heads up that a lot of this information is just publicly available. I've gotten a lot of requests from this, so if you go to GTS's website, which is a distributor in North America, you can just go type in Union Arena, look at the upcoming sets, and get information such as release date, what changes are going to be happening, and be it the card number changes, and just various other changes like that. So if you want to stay up to date and kind of get to the information before even I make a video or anyone else covers it, that is always going to be the quickest source. Just check it every day if you really want to. If you don't want to be bothered with all that, of course, I will be making videos in upcoming changes that we get to see. Now, as I mentioned, there are going to be quite a few different changes that are already confirmed, either by GTS's website or the main Union Arena website. So without further delay, let's get into some of those changes. So up first, we have the starter deck design is a very welcomed update, just to be blunt about it, right? It looks so much better on the shelf. For those that are unfamiliar, this one on the left is what we had for Japan's Union Arena launch. And quite frankly, they use this for a lot of the early sets. And if I'm not mistaken, they are still using it up through year 2. Although I think Nikkei and Forward is getting new box designs, much like the one on the right, which is confirmed. Now, this was at Gamma, but we didn't have any good photos of it that we could really share at the time, so we finally got the first look of it on the website, which was updated. And again, I think this is just really goes to show that they're putting in a lot more effort into the North American launch, which then again, hopefully if it does well in North America, we'll see it in other regions as well. But they really needed to give the product, honestly, a facelift and make it look a little bit better for the shelf, right? This product on the left, it was just a single piece of cardboard with plastic slapped over it, right? It just didn't look great. The red made it really stand out, so there was more attention grabbing that way, but I think we can all agree that the one on the right does catch your eye a bit better. And just from how saturated the market is and how insane it is for how many trading card games are out right now, if you just slap bleach on the shelf and have this nice big orange branding instead, yeah, it's going to look a little bit better and stand out on itself, and then hopefully get more people talking about it. So at a high level, I at least really can appreciate that we've got the starter deck redesign. Again, I think Nikkei Forward in Japan is going to be having this as well, but it took them a long time to get away from this just kind of plastic, $5 starter deck on the wall sort of deal, and getting a little bit more of a deluxe feel to it. So again, presentation is very important. When you're going to your LGS, you are probably very well aware at this point just how many card games are out there. So it is, again, nice to see something that has a little bit more visual appeal to it that is appearing on the store shelves. Now, outside of that, we did also get confirmation now for the supply sets. Now, this is something that we tweeted about, talked about months ago at this point, but we didn't really know what it was going to look like. And good news for those that may have been aware of what they had for Bandai Card Fest Japan and really missed out on things like the Bleach playmat. This is the same exact playmat without the Bandai Card Game Fest branding. And that makes sense. I think a lot of things that we're going to see now and in the future with either licensing agreements or just how they want to be able to print some of these, we are going to see a lot of the similarities from what was released in Japan, or even like the event promos, right? That are just going to be that same event promo or playmat or storage box, whatever it is, just without that special branding. Or if it's for a new North American event, it is going to have some kind of NA stamp on it, right? So we did get the official confirmation of what the storage box looks like and the playmat, and then also that you were going to be able to pick these up early at Gen Con. So at the time of this recording, and I totally missed it, but the Anime Expo Reg is live right now. So actually Anime Expo is going to be the first opportunity to get these products. And there's also going to be a sweet action point, which I'll throw up on the screen here really quickly, that you get 1 per order. So technically, if you want to get 3 action points, because again, that's what you need to play the game, it can be tokens, it can be anything, but if you want all 3 matching action points, you do need to actually buy all three of these. You can't just double up on one of them per the information on their website. So maybe find some friends, maybe find some people that you want to do some trades with. That did bum me out a little bit, but at the same time, you really don't need 3 Bleach supply sets unless you're reselling them anyway. So maybe you can work out some trades with a friend, or maybe you're just excited for all 3 of these and you say, hey, perfect, I wanted to buy all 3 of these anyway, so I can have my matching playmat with the matching deck and all that. And honestly, I ordered them through my LGS just to have them, sort of thing, because we weren't sure what they were going to look like, and I'm very excited for the JJK side, but still a nice product to have. So again, if you're going to Anime Expo or Gen Con, make sure to check the website for more information on how early you can pre-order these and then go pick them up locally. Now, the last thing I will mention is that for Gen Con, they did mention there's going to be some free giveaway or free raffles going on. So we have no idea what that is as of yet. I'm going to assume it's more of this limited action point. Who knows? To be determined, but something else to look forward to if you are going to Gen Con. And of course, I'll be there definitely checking out what other kind of promos and other stuff they have going on. But, you know, I have my print and proxy decks, which I've put in like the Facebook group and other places. So I have, you know, ready to play decks. I'm very excited for the full set releases, so I don't need the demo decks at this point. But if they're going to have some kind of special action point like we've seen for the Bleach, then of course I'm going to be back at it and getting some more action points because I think there's a really cool thing to collect for this game. Now, if I get a full set versus just if I get one of each, that's kind of to be determined, but I think it's just a really cool thing they're doing. Like the Dawn from One Piece, it's just cool to have at least one of every type they release just to see how it's changed over time. So again, if you're excited for these supply sets, make sure you either, if you already order them through your LGS, please continue to get them through your LGS. But if you don't have an LGS that's picking it up right away, Anime Expo and Gen Con are going to be the first two chances to get them. And yes, you do have to make the order yourself and be the person to pick them up. They will check your ID. So if you have a friend who is going, make sure your friend places the order for you, even if they're picking up the product, because unless you are there, or again, whoever is making the order and has the ID to show, you will not be able to pick up this product. So please don't make that mistake. That would feel really bad if you do. Now let's get into some of the changes. Now, this one is going to be a bit of a hot topic, and you know, from this point on, it's going to be a little bit of a rant and speculation, but there is some really interesting changes that we've kind of already seen, and I really want to wait until the JJK information was online and available just from a comparison standpoint, because if you're unfamiliar with kind of the meta of Union Arena, Bleach, Code Geass, and JJK are kind of like the three big meanies of the format in that they are still very, very strong decks. So if you were to ask me, who has been following the game for over a year now in Japan and kind of how the meta has developed, yes, we absolutely need balance changes for things like Bleach, JJK, and Code Geass from a nerfing standpoint, but then also from a buffing standpoint for things like Hunter x Hunter that we're going to be getting and Demon Slayer. And surprise, it looks like they've done both kind of, because as we see here, there are changes to Bleach, which I'll get into a little more details here in a second. And we have seen with Hunter x Hunter getting some extra cards, which I also have an example of, but then JJK didn't get changed. And that's got to be the biggest question mark. Now, to be fair, a 100-card set doesn't mean that nothing has changed. As we're going to see with the Hunter x Hunter example, they could switch out some cards with Volume 1 to Volume 2. However, because I didn't want to go too crazy down the speculation pits, I am going to keep this to just a very high level of what could change from Volume 1 to Volume 2. That would make the most sense. So, with that kind of disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the just side-by-side comparison. So we have the Japan version release information, and on the right, we have the North American. So very quickly, you can see that a common was cut and also a rare was cut. So two cards were cut from this set. Now, if you know anything about the Bleach set, it is purple that by far and away is the strongest version of the deck. And there's a couple different variants that you can run, but I'm going to be a little bit just general for the sake of this video without going into every single archetype breakdown and say that mill enablers are too strong for purple because every purple deck uses them. And that's just kind of where it's at. So walking through this process, right, we want to make sure that we're looking at the commons and the rares. So I kind of went through, crossed out all the uncommons or super rares, and then obviously the starter here at the bottom, and kind of what did that leave us with, right? So as we're going through this, we have just commons and rares that we need to look at. And for commons, a lot of this is and if you, I guess, small disclaimer here, if you haven't watched my How to Build a Union Arena Deck series already, please make sure to go to watch this, or a lot of this won't make sense, and I do a very good job of breaking it down, just what makes up a deck in Union Arena. But generally speaking, things like your 0-cost ones early, your 1/1 recycles, your 1 double energies, things like that, those will never get cut from a Union Arena set because those are the building blocks that you get, or like the draw 1, discard 1, right? Those are fundamentally never going to change. Same thing with the finals and the specials and all that, right? Like those cards absolutely, beyond any doubt, will never change despite any type of balancing. So you know that you can automatically just put those cards aside and say, okay, that's never happening. Those are staying as is. Great. What does that leave us with, right? So that's where you have to look to the other cards. Like, okay, beyond the setup or the energy enablers, where does it really go from there? And when you look at Bleach, and if you strictly look at Bleach through the lens of, okay, what can we hit in purple? There is honestly only two choices. So, and it is a common and a rare, assuming again that is one of each based on the distributor information and the website information. It is literally just these two cards. Like, these are the only two cards that could get hit. Again, I do not see them banning things like your draw one, ditch one, things like your zero cost raid fodder. There's no way would they ever hit those because they are too important to the building blocks of the deck archetypes themselves. However, for those that don't know, purple, as I mentioned, is really about this self-mill strategy and making sure that you're having enough cards in your sideline or graveyard, I forget what the exact name now off the top of my head, that you could then spend towards a removal type of effect. So the two that are very obvious to me then are Tenjiro, which allows you to get a purple character back. So if you, oh no, I milled my best raid target, right? Now you can get it back. And then for Orihime, which just plays two cards from top of your deck in your outside area, or that's right there, outside area. This is just your mill two. It's a 3K, like it's really good stat line. It does everything that you want it to do for your dredge or self-mill plan, but it does give itself then like, okay, where else can we attack these decks to make them slow down a little bit? Now, to be clear, if you haven't looked at the archetypes yet, there are other ways to mill cards to make sure you're getting those effects. And like, this doesn't just, oh no, we lost this one card so the deck is unplayable, right? No, this is still a very good deck, and I would still say easily tier 1 if both of these cards are, if I'm right and both these cards are hit, right? I think that you will slow down a turn, which is totally fine for the deck overall, but it's not something that you're going to be like, oh my god, I can't play this anymore. So with that said, I think this is, again, still what it's going to be the best hits overall for the deck. And when you're going to the understanding it has to be one common and one rare, very straightforward. The thing that has to be these two. I would be shocked if I was wrong, at least if I was balancing this through the lens of how I would change purple. There's some other stuff you could do, but I don't know why you would nerf yellow or the other colors in general, because they do struggle a bit and they are very much like tier 2 just from like an overall power level standpoint. But purple, absolutely, it's going to be getting hit. And these are, again, by any doubt, it has to be these two cards, or Bandai is just looking at something completely different and I could not tell you what it is. However, we get into Hunter x Hunter, and this is kind of the other side of it where we go, oh my god, they buffed it, and oh my god, did they need it? So quick shout out here again to kind of the package updating that we saw. Again, the Japan version on the left, the updated North American version on the right. Just looks so good. And you can see they added a ton of stuff here. We got 3 more rares and 3 more uncommons in the North American set, which is very clear. Given that we saw that the Step Killua, which is a set 2 card, was in the demo deck. So that's like one of the giveaways that we might expect. However, it does also say on the demo decks like, oh, none of these cards are available for legal play, yada, 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 right? So, you know, that small disclaimer aside, they could just strictly be for demo purposes, as those raid cards in the demo decks are not real cards and not in the real sets. So take that with a grain of salt. But this is one that really stuck me because this is by no means as obvious. I went through the same process of Bleach and I said, okay, Hunter x Hunter overall really needs a lot of buffs, if I'm being honest, right? So I personally love the blue decks out of Hunter x Hunter the most. They are just the most fun to play and one of my favorite play styles in trading card games ever. Like Bomber and the Sensei Divining Stop is a random magic reference that I'll make, does definitely need a little bit of support. However, when you're adding 6 cards, it then becomes a question of, you know, are we adding a rare and an uncommon per color? Are we really going to try to buff up, you know, the other 2 and kind of where does that land? Or is it going to be like 2 colors get 3 and then the other color gets nothing, right? If there was a color that I would give nothing to, it's going to be green because it's by far and away the best color from the Hunter x Hunter series. So shout out to those. If you like Kurapika and stuff, that deck is sick. And I cover that again in the other video, but kind of where does that leave us, right? So this is one that I was a little bit more stuck on. I'll be very, very honest. So for at least changes that we would see for blue, these ones, lock it in, slam dunk. Bandai, if you do not give us these 2 cards, I will be so upset, because this is exactly what we would want to see for the blue decks to give them a nice buff. Blue Planet, I talked about this specifically in the last video, that for the special trait, specified slot or specialized trait, whatever wording that they give it for the English version, this thing is a slam dunk. It's a 4 of. It helps with consistency greatly. It's such a good card to bounce. Like, this is just everything you want to be doing. Very solid card. And then for the Bomber archetype, it's not as straightforward. I just like having another color option as well as another 4/1 that's a 4K. Really important here that this is a 4K because the deck does struggle a bit on 4Ks that you want to be playing. So yes, you have to lose out on the other color option, but I think because of what it wants to be doing, because it gives you the extra filter, because it's a 1 action instead of a 2 action from the other card that's in the set, I think this is just the one that makes the most sense. And from here on, I don't know. I'm going to be super honest. This is where like I'm dead set on where Bleach is at. I'm dead set on these 2 cards for blue. And beyond that, I have no idea. Purple at least makes a little bit more sense if you want to really lean into like the Zoldyck family and the Phantom Troop. Like here's a couple cards that, again, it has to be an uncommon and it has to be a rare, right? If we assume 1 for each, like I had mentioned. This is okay. Like Illumi makes sense. It's another color trigger, which I think the other color trigger is probably end up going to be better, but at least gives you more options. And Hisoka at least is giving you more on-play options. And like the discard side is interesting, but maybe not that great. And it is a 5 energy for only 4. Like I would have liked to see another 5 in purple just to give you another option. But both these kind of, just most likely okay if we're going to give something to purple. And then when you get to green, it's a mess. Now, I did mention the Step Killua, but if I remember correctly, it was a common, which then it wouldn't fit into this uncommon and rare cycle. So I was looking at what else was there. And so getting a 1 cost or a 1/1 split that can give plus 1,000, this is really good because in green, the other archetype that's not just oops, all impact is about buffing up your characters and kind of having like the trio come together and have certain BP thresholds that then get special effects. And like, okay, this is a just very solid once per turn, gives you exactly 1,000, which is what you need to turn on all those decks. Like the super rare Gone from the first set gives 2 characters plus 1,000, which is like the enabler that you're forced to use. But if you can just keep this in your energy line and continue to get value off of it, I think this would be an absolute slam dunk of a card to add to the set that can help really make that other green archetype shine. Now, again, green is kind of already in a really great spot compared to purple and blue, but if we are making the assumption that everything is equal across here, this is the one that I would say is an add. And then I'm going to be honest, the rare slot is just awful. Like none of them make sense for green. And this is like, I started with blue, I went to purple, and then I went to green. And when I got to this is where I really started to say like, okay, maybe it's not going to be a split across the board. And maybe like blue is going to get double rares because they need it the most. Actually, I think probably purple. It's really a toss up between these two. I know that the Bomber deck is a little bit better than like the Zoldyck overall, but I think purple is just such a good color in general that they probably don't want to make another purple deck too OP. But this is the one that's like, okay, yes, it does play into that, like, hey, or I should say the trio plus Kurapika, right? But hey, here's a trio. Here's all the guys that are from, the first season. They play off one another. They buff one another, right? It's like just the squad having a good time deck, right? And this is really it. But then it also has, like, if they have the Phantom Troop, so it plays within the theme. I just don't love it. So this is the one that I was like, hey, I guess if we have a rare, it's going to be this one because it plays into the same archetype as Zushi does from the first season and the first archetype. That would make sense, but again, totally not sold on this. So this is where we're going to see, is it going to be, 2 across the board like this, or are they going to double up on some options and just really give all the love to blue and purple? That we have to wait and see. So one of the last things that's really, really exciting that, outside of changes is that we are also getting a English exclusive serialized card. Now, for those that maybe are unfamiliar, they have recently added these serialized action points, which have been super well received in Japan. They are selling for thousands of dollars depending on the IP. Like, these things are great. And I totally expect from a collector's standpoint that they will continue to do well. However, and excuse my very lazy mock-up here, we did get a confirmation on GTS's website that we also will have a serialized Yuji. So my best guess is it's going to be this art style because it is the triple star from it, and it'll have some type of, number like it did on the serial action points onto the card itself. Now, what is the open rate of these? Nobody is going to have any idea of knowing. I'm assuming that it will not be 1 per case, depending on how many serialized go out, but it is something that is extra exciting to open for, again, one of already the best sets to just open in general and to have in Union Arena because JJK is busted, and we will have to wait and see how they end up deciding to balance it or not balance it for the North American launch. And so with that, that is the end of the video about just some quick changes that are coming to Union Arena that I just wanted to recap quickly. Of course, as more information comes out, I'll definitely be excited to talk about and cover it. As it is right now, for just like a channel update in general, you might have noticed that it's been quite a bit of a gap between my last video and this one, just with certain things that are happening both personal life and then obviously with content. We're kind of in a lull anyways for like Battle Spirits. Fusion World is not in a great spot with these set 2, which I don't want to make a video just crapping on a meta that they might ban a card within a couple weeks anyways, and then that video is scrapped. So who knows? We got a little bit until Worlds Beyond, which is what I'm really excited for. If you've been following me on Twitter and how I've been tweeting about it, I posted a little bit of it in the community channel here as well. So who knows? I also picked up the Grand Archive decks lately, so definitely let me know if you're playing that, because the Recollection decks have pretty good value in them, and apparently we have a really good locals for it, so I might just honestly unplug a little bit while waiting for Worlds Beyond, and of course Union Arena later this fall. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below about which set you're still most excited for, and if you're going to be picking up any of these storage sets, because I think it is a great way to celebrate the IPs. But until the next video, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.